is Chelsea Manley.
I'm Thomas Morgenstern.
I'm Nicholas Bees.
Okay. The organization that we chose is Community Partners with Youth, otherwise known as CPY. It's located in New Brighton, Minnesota, right outside the Twin Cities. They are not a school organization. They are a privately funded and owned organization. Their mission statement is to provide a safe, nurturing environment where youth can strengthen their personalities and develop educational and social skills. So essentially, CPY provides the means for students to succeed outside of the classroom in a safe environment if they may not be able to do so at home. It is often low-income students whose families work many jobs or work late and can't pick them up, or if they just don't have a safe environment at home. So they spend a lot of time doing schoolwork at CPY. They also spend time eating snacks for students who may not be able to get dinner provided to them, and they get some time to hang out with their friends and play games as well. So it's not just strictly educational, it is to help students kind of unwind and relax and have a safe environment. I noticed commonly throughout all three of the books is that motivation is the key and not competition. This is essentially saying that students should be motivated through equity and through pushing them to do their best and not having them compete with other students. In Jewels on Schools, there's a quote that says, "Working with university students, we attempt to teach them that assessments can be used as motivation, but not as punishment for children." And this is to explain that although you can get a good grade on a test, it doesn't necessarily mean you should be at the top of the list above every other student who did poor. It's mostly just to assess you and how you are succeeding as an individual. In Berliner and Glass, there is a quote that says, "It's obvious to anyone except a journalist perhaps that if you rank schools on these numbers, you'll be ranking schools by wealth, ethnicity, and exclusivity." And this is saying that ranking students and ranking your schools is only a way to put one person above the other based on their social status, their wealth, and people who are in classes like students who are in AP classes, they are usually the top third of their class, and other students don't necessarily get the same opportunity. There is also a small quote in Sahlberg that says, "Everyone cannot learn everything." So if you rank a student by the test they take, and every other student takes that exact same test, not everyone is going to do as well as other people. People succeed in different aspects of school. And so CPY, they have a lot of strengths with this theme, as the organization itself is for motivating students through mentors and tutors, and it's for free, and they just help push their students to succeed in academics. They also allow students free time and breaks to stop and reset their mind in order to continue learning. They do provide motivation for students if they don't get it at home. And although they do have a lot of strengths, there are a few weaknesses, as the volunteers are not paid and they don't have a set list of rules. They are also not certified in any form of education or tutoring, so it is simply volunteering.
Okay.
The second theme that I got to choose was the equity of outcomes, and equity of outcomes is basically giving high quality education to everybody regardless of their background or where they come from. So it's pretty important that we provide quality education to all of the nation so we don't fail some students by giving them subpar education. And a quote from Sahlberg on page 63, he said, "Finland has about 6% between school variance on the PISA reading scale, whereas the average between school variances in Canada, the US, and the UK are 18, 23, and 30% respectively." And that basically shows that Finland has a lot higher equity of outcomes than our nation and other nations, because a lot of their schools provide high quality education for all of their students, so there isn't much variance in between students, unlike in the US where we have both ends of the spectrum, from like straight A students all the time to very bad students that it's not really all their fault that they're not doing the best in their classes. And then another quote from Williams was, "I saw unbridled joy passed from a student who is known to the teacher who took the time to see and know her and to care deeply, And that basically talks about how much like the teachers are a part of this as well, and how they need to care for the students as well as provide them with quality education, because they have a huge impact on the students' lives and who they become as a person. So it's pretty important for them to just try and make the student become the best version of themselves, I guess. And then the final quote that I chose from Berliner and Glass was, "Why should the right to choose a school for one's child be available only to families that can afford to live in affluent suburban school districts or to pay private school tuitions?" And that is basically just going along with equity outcomes once again, saying like you shouldn't have to be born in Eden Prairie or a rich suburb to be able to get a high quality education, instead of like growing up in Washington DC or LA and having very poor quality education because of where you live, and that's not really your choice. And then to relate this to CPY, some successes that they are doing is they're giving an equal opportunity for all or any kids to get together and work on different schoolwork, as well as helping them build relationships and strengthen their personalities regardless of their background. And they strive to help at-risk students academically, socially, or financially with different programs based on their different individual and specific needs. And then some of the struggles of CPY I guess, it isn't strictly about academics, which students could be getting more academic help elsewhere if that's strictly what they needed to focus on was academics. But then again, this is like an elementary, middle school age thing, so it's not all about the academics, and it's kind of about helping them become a better person. So, I mean, that's not all the way bad, not very negative, but another negative is that they aren't like actual teachers or certified in that sense, but then again, they are trying to help the students become the best they can be, which is pretty good.
Okay, so I had the third theme, and this was one that I was really, really passionate about learning in class, especially because I want to be a teacher myself, so this is something I really want to focus on, especially when I was talking to other students and stuff, because I want to teach English, and a lot of people are like, oh, reading takes me forever, so I always fall far behind. So my theme that I chose, that I saw throughout each book, was the importance on treating each student as an individual, not a number. In the concept of creating a teaching environment that encourages all levels of learning in every student, removing the one-size-fits-all teaching style, which we talked a lot about in class, the whole, like, not the same shoe size fits everyone, which it's true. So my first quote was from Williams on 84, and it starts with, "She and all the beautiful, high-minded, undaunted graduates in her class, in fact, all children everywhere, are creative acts. They are, all of them, the unknown. They are what pulls us forward, and they are what enables us to see the future," which I think is really important to remember, that each student is a bright individual and should be treated that way, even if one student is a little bit slower at reading a novel than another one, or if one student isn't as good as math. There's just a different learning style for each student and a different pace that each student needs to work at. Which goes to Sahlberg, and it's the Peruskulu offers equal educational opportunities for all, which is my quote from Sahlberg, and I have another one, so don't worry. Because that whole teaching's like, that whole idea is to keep students as, now I have to think, all students are at the same level, and there was this whole like fear that I would stop people, like really talented or gifted students, from growing further, but it actually has been really, really proven to be a very useful way of doing things. And then another quote I have from Sahlberg that is actually a quote from another book. You'll see it on the slide, so I cited it. Finland's high achievement seems to be attributable to a whole network of interrelated factors in which students own areas of interest and leisure activities. The learning opportunities provided by school, parental support, involvement, as well as social and cultural context of learning and of the entire education system combined with each other, which I basically just talked about all that. So I'm going to go to the next one from Berliner and Glass, which is, after learning that your child cannot keep up with the class, you may quite naturally come to expect less from your child in and out of school. It'll be hard to mask that belief over the ensuing years, which I thought it made me really disappointed that actually does happen, because if we teach each student like they're an individual, there would be no, oh, the student is less than another one. It'd be, we're all learning and growing. There's just different ways there's so many different learning styles. And then for talking about organization, I said for successfully, it's very encouraging and creative environment, which is embracive of the student's individuality, but the struggles, I would say, would be that there's more to grow. There's more that can be learned and practiced with the organization, and also since it's not a strictly educational program, there's also that, but it's also a good start. And then I'm just going to do the conclusion since I'm already on. And so for our conclusion, CPY is an organization that succeeds in many ways to help students. They motivate students and they don't make them compete with each other. They focus on treating each student as an individual and giving them one-on-one learning, and they provide equity for students to succeed who may not have the means to do so at home. CPY is not perfect, nor is any organization. Their employees are not certified for or educated fully on how to be a teacher or tutor or mentor. It isn't solely focused on academics, so students could find strictly
academia.
Cannot pronounce words. Going to be a great English teacher. Based on organizations elsewhere, and it is constantly changing and shaping itself to base around the students. So its primary goal is not always the same. And that was our themes and our project. Happy finals.